Welcome to an overview of the Venture Model Canvas, which will be provided in a voiceover PowerPoint and an integrated dramatization of the use of this tool. One-page enterprise planning tools, based on the 2008 Business Model Canvas, are a common starting point for iterative development of new ideas into viable business startups. The Beneficiary School of Leadership and Public Affairs at Ohio University developed the tool described here for social enterprises and public sector projects. Our Venture Model Canvas helps collect, organize, and plan initial actions for enterprises or projects that are fiscally sustainable and socially impactful. All right, folks, thanks very much for coming to the council meeting. Good to see everybody. Brad, thanks for coming from Starbucks. Lydia, thanks for representing the schools. And Lydia, or Naomi, the business interests. And of course, Mary, it's always good to see you. So today we're going to be using this, the Venture Model Canvas. I know that we've all talked about this particular way to talk about our problems and figure out a solution that might be something of an enterprise nature. The original Business Model Canvas used 9 building blocks to show a business value proposition at the center, the ways that value reached customers on the right, the activities, partners, and resources needed to create and deliver that value, and the costs and revenue that made the business fiscally sustainable. The Beneficiary School's social enterprise team modified this model for application to the social enterprise and public sector by redefining value proposition as a social value, customers as beneficiaries, and most importantly, adding a double bottom line to the cost benefit section, underscoring the importance of social and environmental costs and social impact benefits of enterprises that are mission-driven and of public projects intending to have significant social impact as well as fiscal sustainability. To use this tool, founders and planning teams start in the central block of a blank canvas, where they identify the overarching problem, the proposed solution, and the value that solution has for the intended beneficiaries. The right side of the canvas helps the group identify specific target beneficiaries, the relationships that the enterprise or project has with those beneficiaries, and the ways in which the social value, that is, the product or service, is provided to the beneficiaries. The left side of the canvas is the place to brainstorm the implementation of the enterprise or projects, the partners needed, the activities to be undertaken, and the resources essential to those activities. Finally, Canvas users identify the fiscal, social, and environmental costs to implementation and the fiscal, social, and environmental benefits from providing this value to these beneficiaries. So in order to start out using this, I'd like to talk about our problems. What are some of the sort of major problems that we're envisioning in our various sectors of the community?
Well, personally, my business, and I'm sure others, have been suffering from a string of vandalism, just teenagers after school love to come in and not buy anything and scare other people away. So that is far from ideal.
Yeah, and honestly, parents are really worried about the lack of supervision for their children after school and their kids being destructive.
And also there is an increased absenteeism at the workplace, which is affecting productivity.
So we've got some problems that are all centering around the concept of families, disaffected children, work-life balance. So let's write down that. And
I think I've captured it all here.
Okay, all right. So that's the problem. So we face a lack of engaged programming for K-12 students. And this results in vandalism and absenteeism. So we've got a problem that has a lot of aspects, but do we have a solution that might potentially incorporate answers to all of these?
Well, the PTO has been thinking about this a lot, and we would really like to see an inclusive after-school program for kids.
I was just thinking more police going through businesses and maybe outside of school, after school hours, something like that, but that's not a bad idea either.
So enforcement, but maybe we've got some constructive engagement that we might consider. So let's go down that avenue. What about for your employees? What about an after-school program? What do you think about that?
I think that would be great for them. At least they will have a secure mind that their children are doing something productive instead of wandering in the streets.
Okay, so how can we phrase that particular solution?
How about a low-cost, inclusive, place-based, engaging after-school program for K through 12?
Awesome. I like the way that's phrased. In this dramatization of the use of the Canvas, civic leaders from the city government, business, and the schools use the tool as a framework for brainstorming an enterprise-based solution to a related set of problems facing the community. Having voiced concern from all participants centered around unsupervised, disengaged K-12 youth, the group honed in on a community-based, professionally run, place-based K-12 program, including mentoring and internships for older youth. So thinking about the problem that we've identified and the solution that we've come up with, I would like us to focus and particularly identify the different beneficiaries, because we are going to have different beneficiary streams and different ways in which we're going to engage our value proposition with those beneficiaries. So what are the beneficiaries? Who are the beneficiaries?
Well, the children, obviously.
Okay,
The parents.
the parents?
And businesses like mine.
Okay, so we've got 3 distinct beneficiary streams. Let's just put that down.
And I'm going to note the community in general, because of course not just the people at this table could benefit from the solution.
So that's an indirect beneficiary, which is extremely important when you're talking about an overall enterprise. The value created served a wide range of beneficiaries, including directly youth and their families, and indirectly the businesses and the community at large. So let's think about other aspects of this particular solution. What other thoughts do we have about it?
Well, we have to develop some activities for this after-school program.
Yeah. So what are your ideas about activities? What do you think about?
Well, I have always been of a feeling that these kids are just going to hang out in the businesses. Maybe we should just get them some jobs working there instead. We could potentially set up some sort of partnership with the city or the schools to get more high school students placed into area businesses.
And for the kids that aren't old enough to work yet, we could offer tutoring services.
I'd really like to see some mentorship opportunities, because I think when kids have time to really work with some people that are in leadership positions in the community, I really think it helps them in school and in life.
So I think that both of us have been writing down some activities. You had some activities that are maybe focused on the parents, and I've put down some of the youth aspects. So this shows that there is this differential stream between activities that are relevant to the beneficiaries who are youth and the beneficiaries who are parents. So given that we have all of these activities, what kind of resources do we need to engage and undertake these activities?
Well, we'll need volunteers.
And we'll definitely need to have some sort of facility if it's not going to be at the schools themselves.
And we will need some transportation.
Okay.
Certainly we'll need some staff. And it'd be great if they could be trained in some curricular elements that we're interested in, whether it's the arts or music and movement or whatever the group decides.
And we should probably develop some informational material for the parents in case they're worried about safety of the program.
Well, I think we have a good list of resources here.
Excellent.
And I think, talking about the parents and their concern for safety really speaks to the kind of channels that we'll need to be able to reach those beneficiaries. So one of them would definitely be that reassuring literature.
And we would also need curricular material, which is another one of the channels for the youth. And I'm going to put a list here of the youth-engaged channels, the ways in which our value proposition is going to reach the beneficiaries who are youth.
Is there some sort of, legal obligations surrounding this that we would need to deal with at all? Or
So I think that you're getting into the relationships block. I think that the engagement of the enterprise with the beneficiaries who are parents is definitely going to require a legal basis. So that's a part of the relationship for the parents. So I'll put this contractual note there. The value is provided to the beneficiaries through on-site, individual delivery of on-site programming. On the implementation side of the Canvas, the planning group identified the initial activities necessary to start the program, including a stakeholder survey and needs assessment, and, on the basis of that information, creation of programming and engagement between all providers. Resources necessary for implementation included a facility, staff, and curricular development. So we've gone all over the map here, but we have a problem solution, beneficiaries, the relationships and channels, activities and resources. We might start thinking about costs and benefits from a fiscal standpoint. So what about that cost structure? We've got a lot of resources. What kind of costs might we have?
Well, we'll have to adapt the facility or remediate the building that we're going to be using.
The building is going to be a massive cost.
if this does end up, keeping some of these kids out of my businesses, I would be willing to donate, some of those increased profits I'll be making back into this program if it works out effectively.
That's a wonderful donation opportunity, and thanks very much. Starbucks would certainly be a great partner in that regard. And that does significantly reduce the cost of a facility. There are some other costs affiliated with the resources.
Yeah, we can certainly provide support in terms of food and snacks that the kid will need during the day.
Okay.
We'll also need to think about how we're going to pay all those staff members.
And I think you're right there, and I think that probably employees might be the greatest percentage. So I'm going to guess at 75% of the costs, actually, now that we have the generous donations of food and facilities. So what I'm going to do is just put out a little pie chart here that indicates the bulk of the costs at this point being employees.
And to help offset some of those costs, we could probably work with the school transportation to help actually get the kids to the program, as you mentioned, and help with getting parents to volunteer to offset some of those employee costs.
So I think we're starting to talk about revenue streams. We certainly have donations. We have the generous donation of the facilities. Transportation could have been a major expense, but that now we're going to have donated as well.
And it's important to say that I think all of these contributions represent some partners that are really important.
Very good point.
So we have the sponsors of the food, we have some transportation, we've got businesses providing both revenue and perhaps also some internship opportunities.
And I think we could get more businesses on board too.
The multifaceted program required significant partnerships, including schools, parent organizations, businesses, and volunteer organizations. As the planning group considered the cost-revenue structure, prior to in-depth financial analysis, they created a pie chart of costs in broad categories by percentage of budget, including the facility cost, heavily subsidized by a generous business donor, staff, materials, and volunteer support. So we have our pie chart with the potential revenue streams. I will say that we do have, I think, a concern about fees. Do we have any thoughts about fee structure for the participants?
What if we made it a sliding scale so it could meet the needs of each family income?
That's a great idea, and in fact, if we had a sliding scale, that would mean that the facility might be open to everybody in the community.
Now that I'm thinking about this a little bit more, my children personally go to the Elite Academy for after-school care. A program like this, would that maybe take away from their own business?
That is a really good point, Brad. And I think that a lot of folks with children in that particular situation with plenty of funding to go to the Elite Academy, it is going to be something of a competitive situation. And with a nonprofit of this nature, we really want to make sure that we're not stepping on toes. And so we do need to have that conversation. And I think that this would go in social and environmental costs, because there is a cost of providing a solution that potentially doesn't, that potentially conflicts with some of the other solutions already in the community. So I think we have almost completed a canvas. I think that we have identified a problem, come up with an amazing solution, and collaboratively managed to do a cost structure.
And if it works out, it might make for a safer and happier community.
Which is absolutely where we wanted to go in the first place.
Yeah, and we'll have reduced absenteeism,
All right.
hopefully.
So our solution ties into the benefit to the community that we've identified with our new nonprofit. So congratulations, guys. I think that this has been a wonderful Canvas exercise.
Thanks, everyone.
The group also identified as a potential social cost needing mitigation conflict between an existing institution, the expensive Elite Academy, and the newly proposed programming. The group added to their activities and partners blocks plans to connect and coordinate with the Academy as another provider to avoid the social cost of turf wars, misunderstandings, or exhaustion of limited cash and volunteer resources. On the revenue side, the planning group discussed fiscal sustainability, creating another overview pie chart to identify sources of funding, including business and city support, and a sliding scale fee structure for program beneficiaries. Finally, tying back to the original value proposition, the group identified the socially impactful results, including safe, place-based curricular experiences for the K-12 populace, with mentorship and internships for older youth. The group also added, to the activities section, evaluative measures to ensure documentation of impact. This Canvas cheat sheet indicates the kinds of questions that users of the tools can ask as brainstorming proceeds. Again, the most important block on the Canvas is the central definition of the overarching problem being addressed, the solution to that problem, and the value being delivered to the specific identified groups of beneficiaries. When the tool is initially used, be sure to cite very detailed first-in activities and resources, which will likely include use of the tool to describe the program to potential beneficiaries and receive beneficiary input to program implementation, in order to best fit the value to the true needs of the target beneficiaries. Also key, particularly for nonprofit and public sector projects, is a full list of potential partners, including both potential donors and collaborators who can provide resources or volunteers, and also other entities providing similar services or complementary services to the same beneficiaries, in order to avoid reinventing the wheel. Finally, make sure there is clear, high-level identification of the fiscal, social, and environmental costs and benefits. Ensure, as the tool is used to ground truth the conceptual validity with the beneficiary audience, that all costs and benefits are captured, and that milestone-driven evaluation of the presumed benefits is pre-programmed into the activities. The Canvas is meant to be an iterative tool. Here, the final product of a Canvas workshop were initial canvases for a wide variety of proposed social enterprises and public projects. The next step after Canvas creation is always to check in with beneficiaries and to prepare to modify and improve ideas on the basis of what is truly needed and wanted for greatest and most sustainable impact.